Hey there, Allyson McQuinn. Greetings to you, Allyson McQuinn.
Greetings to you, Jeffrey Correntair. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you so much.
We're meeting so often this way that I'm thinking this is considered dating now.
Well, this is like a new room in our house, practically. So, our topic today is on a great book that you wrote a few years back now, The Path to Cure, The Whole Art of Healing Autism. And well, it's your book. Why don't you give us a little bit of the story? I know we've kind of talked about it in different ways, but yeah, there's always something new to discover. It's such a great story.
Well, it was back, 27, 28 years ago now. And I was working as a financial advisor with the federal government. And I gave birth to a son who was 2 months premature. And I won't go into the reasons for that, but I figured out why afterwards. My health was just not what it should be. I suffered a lot of pain, fibromyalgia, I was diagnosed with, and lots of issues with regards to in my on my scalp. We call it Sora, but it was very you know psoriasis and just on speed. It was horrible. My whole scalp broken out, and just I was having autoimmune implosions, and I just had no clue. I mean, people have symptoms all the time, so it never occurred to me that I needed to do anything about it. And the doctors just kept giving me this stuff to put on the open sores on my head. And yeah, the fibromyalgia doctor just said, exercise, and he wanted to qualify me for the same medication, about $15,000 a year worth of medication, which is the same as what they use for people that suffer lupus. And I thought, well, that just seems like not a really good road to go down. So then I gave birth to my son, and of course, surprise, surprise, there's a whole myriad of issues. Born 2 months premature, which we know is my microbiome was a disaster. I'd suffered all kinds of chronic infections as a kid, kidney infections, bladder infections, and then yeast issues off the charts. And so, yeah, no, they just kept giving me statin drugs and all kinds of antibiotics. And of course, when I went to have a baby, my whole microbiome ecology was an extreme disaster. So Jordan popped out 2 months premature by C-section because he was in distress with 180 beats per minute. We delayed vaccines. It never occurred to me not to get them. That would just be negligent on my behalf. And so we waited till 15 months instead of 12 months. We kind of corrected his age a little bit and gave him the MMR, and he lost all speech and eye contact within about 6 weeks. Then the chronic constipation issues started, and he was only passing stool once every 2 weeks, which was just devastating for him. He was in a lot of pain all the time. We spent hours sitting on the bathroom floor while he tried to pass stool. I took him to the hospital 7 times in an emergency capacity because he was in so much pain. I didn't know what else to do. They gave him milk and molasses enemas, and once put him under general anesthetic to remove the impacted stool manually. So you can kind of imagine our life was a living hell. He had a lot of rages because he was extremely toxic. He wouldn't be anything for him to just haul off and, slap me across the face or hit me or punch me or kick me. And, that was just normal behavior. He had some weird stuff that was showing up with regards to lining up little toys. He was a control freak, like just not a normal kid at all. And we really didn't know what to call this. They weren't labeling these types of behaviors back then at all, Jeff. So they they really didn't say, oh, this child's in this spectrum, because that wasn't even a term used. That was before that was happening. And so I felt very alone and isolated and super scared. And I knew somehow I was culpable. And I took him to a whole bunch of therapists. I went to a homeopath. We'd get a little distance and things would clear up a certain degree. And then all the symptoms would just come rushing back again. Chiropractic, energy workers, I mean, you name it, we did it, and was throwing thousands of dollars in therapies, trying to resolve. And it was really 3 people in 1 week said, you know, Allie, you really should go and see the verse spores there at the Hahnemann College for Heilkunst. And they seem to be doing homeopathy different. And I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, like, really? It doesn't matter what I'm going to throw at it next. And another woo woo therapy isn't going to, make a difference. But if 3 people mention in a week, I'll just, give it a try. What's another $1,000, $2,000? And so just kind of resigned and fed up beyond words. And so I was already researching at a library by that time, because I figured, with the classical homeopath, it wouldn't work at all if there was nothing to it. And so I was doing quite a bit of research at the time, but nothing was really yielding. I wasn't getting like fundamental answers as to principles or logic or rationale. Is just like, oh, well, try these remedies, which sounded a lot like try these drugs. To me, it was just a different flavor of the month. So Patty Smith at the Hahnemann College really guided us and assured me that things were going to turn around. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not the only one to say that. And sure enough, within 2-3 months, Jordan had some amazing high fevers and started to speak. I tell you, when your 5-year-old child slams the door in your face and says, I need my privacy, I slid down the wall. And I remember looking in the mirror and just watching my face crumble. And I sobbed with relief, thinking, oh my God, like, are we really here? Like, is he passing stool on his own? And he's actually starting to regain some of this, the capacities lost after birth. And so I still can't believe like the turnaround, and that we are able to consistently provide this path to cure to other families, for which we have many testimonials on our website. So that, in a nutshell, really is Jordan's story. And then I decided to undergo. Patty said to me, Jordan's only going to get a certain distance if you don't also undergo Heilkunst treatment. I'm like, all right, well, certainly this was a one-off for my son, and what could it possibly do for me? And of course, my psoriasis got a ton worse before it got better, and a lot of bleeding and open weeping sores, and oh my gosh, it was just a shit show and lots of bladder and yeast issues. But then things just started to lessen and lessen and lessen, and they got progressively better. And I waltzed right into the face of a lot of my childhood trauma, my mother's suicide and my father dying of a heart attack at the age of 43 when I was 17. And there was a huge amount of trauma in with the wrong crowd in university, a lot of alcohol, drug use and everything else. And I had to go back and face all of those traumas one by one, which didn't seem like a good time to me at all. And it wasn't. It was super hard. And that's what I write about in The Path to Cure. When I was going through my own process, I really commiserated with, poor Jordan, walking back out all of his pathology as a result of the vaccines and then the 8 genetic miasms that were also plaguing him. So I can't say Heilkunst is a walk in the park. I guess that's what I needed to grow my ultimate compassion for my own patients 20 years ago when I started serving them. And so, yeah, you'll never hear me say, oh, healing reactions are easy, or this path to cure is, a boatload of fun, because it's not. But the alternative for me with the chronic and wild mental illness on that whole side of my mother's family, and then major heart stroke issues on my father's side, um, I felt like I was backed into a corner and I really didn't have any choice. This was my only portal through and out the other side. Every member of my immediate family by many decades now. And so, yeah, imagine my surprise. I didn't expect this outcome at all.
Mm. Yes, and thank you. Actually, you've really encapsulated. That's I know it's there's so much more to living through all that and the years and all that. You encapsulate it quite beautifully, and you've kind of said it all in a way. But I do want to highlight a couple of the points that to kind of really that you and I. This is so kind of old hat in a way to talk about these principles of cure and how you can cure a case and like yeah that's our daily in and out of the clinic all every day kind of work. But yeah, just as I say, I want to highlight some of the points because for anyone who may be watching this may be kind of a new idea, right? This may be a kind of a new thing to even think about. That maybe what was that famous Wizard of Oz quote? To think of thoughts I never thought before. I forget how that song is, um, but yeah, so as I say, you've kind of said it all, but just to flesh out some of the points here. One, the thing that really jumped out at me today was the way you were, you kind of gave your history, prior to children and some of what was going on in your health and all that. And that, I mean, to me, that just jumps right out. I know, what we see in case histories and what we're looking for and everything, but just to kind of bring the point home that, yeah, you kind of brought into your your child rearing years a whole history of your own, right?
Yeah.
Medical, drug use, and the emotional history, and the some of the it's like some of the prescriptions you have to have, and all these kinds of things. So yeah, through my Heilkunst eyes, I'm just like going check, 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 and checking all these boxes. Of, oh yeah, all the things we need to like. I'm just pretending we're doing your case in real time, like it's just happening right now, right? And yeah, we have to go and oh yeah, we'll have to clear this drug and this this emotional event and so on and so on. I see that quite clearly just because we live it every day. But yeah, just to understand why I'm saying all this in this manner is that this is one of the biggest questions we actually get asked by people who are just at the beginning of starting a treatment plan with us. Often, of course, we talk to parents. They want to treat their autistic child. We treat other conditions as well. But one of the biggest questions is if it's worded in different ways depending on who's asking it, but whether it's necessary or whether it's a good idea for for the parents also to be treated. Sometimes it's not even asked so in such a direct way, but they kind of are talking about some other things, and we'll actually bring that idea to them. Right? Well, it's kind of like the right time to present it because yeah, as I say, you illustrated so beautifully that yeah, very clearly that is part of the case. And as I say, in autism, that the general spectrum, we do get quite a range of expressions of cases, right? They're kind of there's this kind of a bit of a broad map there of what you can see, but there's a lot of the same underlying things that are going on. So that's when we talk about these consistent laws of nature, the laws of cure, and everything. We can, despite every case being unique and different, and no two snowflakes alike, that kind of thing, it doesn't matter. Like it's we still the same principles will apply, and you can unpack it and get to that path to cure, just as long as you adapt those principles exactly to what's unique in that case. So that's and I say that's a really big point, because a lot of people they don't. This may be kind of, as I said a minute ago, a very new idea that to people to even think of the concept of consistent laws of nature and consistent process of how we can cure all the different cases. Most like you're coming out of the allopathic system or just the general medical culture that we all live in, the idea that people even subconsciously get is yeah, there is no such thing as cure. When a success case happens with this modality or that modality or with whatever, people have just been trained to think, oh, that was a fluke, or they were lucky, or that was a 1 in a million shot, or it's like being you can't be struck by lightning twice kind of idea. It's like, yeah, a kind of a fluke of nature kind of thing. But no, this is precisely what, as I say, you this is where you started, with your life and your son and everything, and you lived this whole experience. But yeah, this is what we've learned, formally now, through studies and through 20 plus years of clinical experience with all of this. Yeah, it's not a fluke. It's not lucky. It's not, well, this family got lucky because, whatever, they hit on the right remedy or the right nutrient or something. No, it's not at all. There is a path, and we can take the case, any case that we get, we can take it down that path consistently every time and get to that final curative result. Now, the details will be different from case to case, but the principles are not, right? So that
Mhm.
said, that's just like, as I said, anyone who, all the combative people on social media. I don't know if you ever encountered them, hun, but I seem to have. And yeah, if it's like you want to tell them at some point, well, if you want to argue against the laws of nature, why don't you give me your best argument for why the law of gravity is bunk? It's like why aren't you arguing that case? Because you're essentially doing the same thing, but you're just kind of you're taking your focus out over on here. You happen not to really understand what you're talking about on here, but the louder you speak, it seems you're gonna feel more important about your arguments or something. Anyways, blah 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 blah. I don't want to. We know all the trolls are out there on the internet. That's another law of nature. They're not going to go away. So, mhm.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think it's odd that, yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I often say this to patients, the law of gravity, just think of the nuances. I'm a woman of 136 pounds, and, what about a man who's 270 pounds? And we stick to the earth at the like in the exact same way without more force bearing down on another. When you think about it, it's a miracle.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, to be able to actually use belladonna for a child's fever, for example, right-sided, they're waking up at midnight, and this just happened this week, that I prescribed that remedy. um, and also for a mom with mastitis this week, and same results in both cases. They're like, my son's earache is completely gone, he's, the cough is abating, he's sleeping through the night. The other mom with the mastitis is like, yes, the breast isn't red anymore. There's no hot splotches. I mean, it's an amazing thing to be able to affect cure like that. And no one was more surprised than I was, because, it wasn't even, it was 4 years after studies that I got to clinical, still thinking, that this is random, until like because I was in the realm of finance and science, I was like, yeah, there's no way it's still that this can be consistent. But we had 3 women with fourth stage cancer in that clinical, and of them, every single one of them resolved. And so imagine, my surprise, and here we are 20 years later with pages and pages of testimonials on arcanum.ca. You can't deny those results.
No, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and again, thank you, to all the 20 years of the success cases and all this, but which is great in itself. But yeah, this is the point I wish that more people could come to understand was, yeah, it's not by chance or luck or
Mhm.
random flukes or whatever. It's, yeah, by following. Now, here's the thing too. When I keep talking about the laws of nature, it also this is where the scientific part of it comes into, because the laws of nature are always operating, right? They're always there, they're always doing their thing. But until we come along with our scientific rational mind and apply the appropriate laws of nature, to a given case, and how that case needs to go through a curing and healing process, it's until that rational mind comes along that we can actually start to talk the way that we are, that, oh yeah, now we can predictably take someone on that path to cure, and we know those laws, we know how to go through them. Otherwise, in a sense, what people think about being lucky, or that kind of thing, in a sense, they're correct that, yeah, if that scientific process is not being enlivened and activated in a given case in a given kind of clinical setting, then yes, then you are dealing with luck and chance and, oh well, we just grabbed this next vitamin off the shelf to see what would happen. Like trial and error is not science in that sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, there is a germ of truth to thinking, it's all about luck or whatever. But no, we can definitely go way beyond that realm of chance into the higher realm of rational principles, which is exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah. So let's do that. I'm just going to take a moment and go through what I normally go through with a brand new patient after the initial assessment at the initial consultation. And so basically, I just put this map up. This was created by jurisdictions of Halkins medicine. You don't have to pay too close attention to the bubbles. But basically, this is what we call the biological realm. This is the realm that I was really messed up in as well. And so, things with regards to the four cardinal points: water, exercise, sleep, and diet are super important. And you might feel in the first initial consult that you're in the office of a naturopath. And a lot of people will say that. And absolutely, we need to make sure that the scaffolding of your health is sound and that we're working towards creating a more bolstered organism that can withstand these middle bubbles, which is when we start to de traumatize the individual of all of their timeline events of emotional and physical shocks and traumas in the order in which they were assumed back to birth. Then we get to the 8 genetic miasms. This top bubble is what we call therapeutic education. That feels a lot like counseling. You want to make sure that, let's say, the person comes in with a diagnosis of cancer, which is a disease of resignation, that they are not reproducing this state of mind for the disease matrices. And I find it super interesting, including myself, that I actually ended up with an 1.5 inch tumor in my left breast. And there's a correlation between us mamas of autistic babes and the cancer miasm.
Yes.
And we've written, I think we've both written blogs in that realm exactly about that. Because a child can't download an autonomous sense of individuality, especially if the mama doesn't have one. And that's the nice way of saying that that's why the mama has to be treated, because it is really important that we become the mentors for our babes, especially when they start to come out of the spectrum, is that we have to be prepared to catch them and then mentor them to the place that they are actually going in their reality and sovereignty. Back to this map now. So just to be clear, what we do is we take a patient like an onion and we peel the emotional and physical shocks and traumas off in the order in which they were assumed. And then we get to these 8 genetic miasms, which are the root causes of all diseases, all chronic diseases. And by resolving them using this map, we consistently get rates of cure up into the high 90s. And so that's super exciting. And like Jeff says, we're just following a recipe or a map, really, and the principles um, are consistent, even though the cases are always different. When we treat children in the spectrum, we generally end up here in the chthonic realm. There are a lot of fears and a lot of terrors from not downloading one's ego structure, I mean, healthy ego structure, um, on a clear and natural unfolding. So the problem, of course, ends up being that because there are schisms and blockages, and a child from vaccine damage ends up with their life force suppressed, which means that it gets arrested along the way with certain schisms, and that can be genetic miasm contributes to the autistic spectrum issues, along with the insults of the vaccines themselves. And so the problem ends up being that you have to reverse that those insults, and you have to do it in a proper order that allows you to unlock almost like a set of keys. You have to have the proper keys inserted at the right time. And so what we know is that, by treating the child of their traumas during the course of their lives, maybe the diagnosis, then those 79 vaccines before they're 17, which, yeah, I could go on about that in great length. Then the birth trauma. Now, as we go along, we do treat these 8 genetic miasms in their proper order. And what we find, well, we found with Jordan especially, is that tuberculinum really helped to resolve the chronic constipation. He was locked away behind, ended up being more the syphilitic genetic miasm and also Lyme. And by curing these particular diseases on the law of nature, like cures like, we are then unlock the child's pathology. Because, I remember thinking that I'd see glimmers for sometimes 20 minutes of Jordan's true self. He would say something and I would just be like, oh my God, there he is. There he is. Oh no. He'd slide kind of back down under the pathology again. But when he started to resolve through the system of Heilkunst, it was like these periods where I actually saw his true essential self just kept staying for longer and longer periods of time. Then he'd slide back, but he'd come back out that much quicker until he held, permanently. And it's important for me to say that, my son is 28 years of age. He's been a Bowen practitioner, a trampoline acrobat, trampoline acrobatic teacher. He's been not Tai Chi. What was the modality that he?
Oh, that'll come to me in a second. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So things requiring a lot of hand-eye coordination. He's working now in computer systems and helping people build websites now. I mean, he's had, girlfriends and kept many jobs and been a manager and supervisor in his young years. And I mean, he's just absolutely brilliant. And that's the thing, is that I was worried when he was really little that he would have to be institutionalized, and I didn't know how I was going to be able to care for him, and what I was going to do after I died. Like, these were thoughts I had that were to me. I didn't know, really how he was going to survive beyond my time on the planet, because he was severely disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't have the cognitive function at all to be autonomous. And, Jordan hasn't lived with us for over 10 years now. So yeah, it's, I'm still amazed that, that we all have our independence and autonomy as a result of Heilkunst medicine.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your maps. And I know, and we can go on so much longer about them. There's a lot of detail there, but yeah, you really gave us a good flavor of that. And that's part of, our bigger point here today is that, yes, we do have the exact principles, the rational principles and all of that. And it is, what's that expression? Like nothing like hard work or rolling up your hard sleeves or whatever. I forget exactly the expression, but yeah, this idea that the truth of the principles is there. But yeah, on each given case, it's going to take that rolling up the sleeves, the elbow grease, the work to really apply, tease out exactly what details we need to be paying attention to as we go from step by step in each case.
Yeah. I always take a moment too, and because people are like, well, why doesn't everybody do this? And where did it start? And how come the boat was missed? And, and it has a lot to do with big pharma kind of, occluding really, because there were all homeopathic hospitals all over the United States at the turn of the last century. Dr. Samuel Hahnemann was born 1755 in Meissen, Germany, and he came about because he was really fed up with the medical system. He's just like, you guys just keep poisoning people with all your bloodletting, cupping, and leeching, like, and you destroy the vital force by leaching it out of the human. And people were dying and getting sicker. And so he was like, I can't do this ethically anymore. This is ridiculous. I don't even know when to apply what. Sound familiar?
Hmm.
And so, now we only have one diagnosis, and it starts with a C, because that's all they go to medical school for. It seems nowadays it's just, yeah, it's the C word for everything. And whether you have a cough or cold in the fall or spring, there's no delineation between tuberculosis or SORA anymore. It's all the same C word. I'm like, what a waste of money and time if you only have one diagnosis for everything. So Hahnemann was extremely, like, he was the par excellence observational scientist. And the amazing thing was he had given up his medical practice because he couldn't do it anymore, given the lack of ethics. And spoke 12 different languages and translated effectively in 8. And he was translating the works from Scottish English into German, and noticed the use of quinine in the prevention of malaria. And he thought, well, that's weird. You can give a substance like from the bark of the tree, of the cinchona tree from South America, and prevent a disease. Like, how's that even possible? And so he actually went on a mission and actually took a dose of quinine himself, and made himself extremely sick with lots of nausea and diarrhea, and you know vomiting, and fever. And so when he got better, he thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe nature's consistent in the way that she poisons. So he went off to the college that he was teaching at and asked his students if they would do a proving. He didn't even have that term back then. But yeah, they all had the exact same symptoms. And he thought, well, that's super interesting. What if what Hippocrates said, that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and first cause no harm, and all of these things. But Hippocrates had said one more thing, and that is, you must base prescription on the law of nature, like cures like. And so when a patient came to see him with the symptoms that looked like the quinine disease he had provoked within himself, he gave a small crude dose of quinine and cured it instantaneously, and then thusly discovered the law of cure, like cures like, which we are told is the law of homeopathy, or homeopathic cure. And so, the cool thing is that this is used by 19 million people in Europe and North America, more in Europe. And so when we came on the scene, AJF 21 years ago, nobody knew what the hell it was we were doing, or why, because it was very much more European based. So Heilkunst is a much broader system. I mean, we're trained now. The program is over 6 years, and I mean, you're doing a third postgraduate research right now. In fact, I don't think I've ever known you not to be studying formally Heilkunst principles, off into anthroposophy and orgonomy, and now into the deepest level of philosophy that we have available.
And that's like on our theme for today. It's like, the general framework of principles is quite straightforward. Like, within a small number of minutes, we could lay it out for a brand new person, and it's, oh yeah, here's, we have this zone of the principles, and we have this one over here. We have the three major jurisdictions. But yes, as far as going deeper into study and everything, it's like, and also corresponding with that, the uniqueness and individuality of each case. It's like, yeah, you get into a whole world of nuance and detail that needs to be unpacked afresh, with each patient in each case. So yeah, the more you can say philosophical horsepower I pack in under the hood, yeah, the more, that's my reason for doing what I do as far as studies is, yeah, I do notice actually it does help me in the details of my cases and really get into
Mm-hmm.
the roots of things.
Yeah, I found only one course of study was sufficient for me.
Yes, some
Where
people like you are back to luck and everything. You're just born with an innate sense of smartness, and
no, it's
you have
not true.
a natural common sense wisdom. I'm more of like a brain wisdom, a brain smarts that I need to feed that a lot of fuel, but I got a
That's
lot to
not
feed.
true. Yeah, I just prefer. I think you need a backup, support, making sure somebody's making meals. Otherwise, you would never eat because you're so busy and with all of your studies and yeah, practice and running a very large empire now, as it would seem. So, mhm.
So let's turn this over to the viewers, and now for any questions or just general comments, wherever you are participating in this, Facebook or YouTube, or if you're some one of the other similar platforms. As always, you can just go down to the comment box underneath this video and just type your question, type your comment. If you're here with us live, we'll get that right now and we'll speak directly to you, that whoever just typed something in. Otherwise, if you're watching the replay, same thing, just put in your comment and we will get that and we will bring that forward to the next time we're talking like this, the next time we have a question and answer session. And yeah, nothing will get lost in the mists of time. We just will keep circling around the questions as you bring them forward. So yeah, any kind of final reflections or summary that you have of what we're kind of focusing on today, Allyson?
Yeah, like you say, Jeff, just after all these years of Heilkunst medicine, I'm truly amazed. I think of the children that I have served. Finley, who started to speak and didn't have speech before. Little Alexander, who was locked away in his world, writing with little plastic blocks his name after the first session, and he had never done that before. Just the love and compassion that I've had for the parents that trusted me and us, to bring their own path to cure. I'm so full of gratitude to have had the opportunities to resolve those cases. They're super emotional for me. There's not a day that goes by that I still don't have those feelings that I did with the struggles that I had with my own son. And, when a mother is crying and saying how difficult and hard it is. And then as we go through several months of treatment, just the big shifts and the big wins. And, we get to celebrate that together. And I still am right along with them, heart to heart, shoulder to shoulder, because, yeah, it's just, it's indescribable, the feeling when a child starts to wake back up after being traumatized and injured.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. We can talk about the rational principles, which are true, but yeah, there's a very human outcome at the end of it all, and yeah, that's never lost on when we go through this experience with anyone, that's the real living reality of behind all this. But yeah, I am grateful, thankful for the principles to be able to do that. But yeah, you're right. To kind of bring it back home to that, Alison, it is very much a human story we end up with in the end.
Yeah. Just to mention that when Jordan was really ill, I made a pact with whatever creator created us humans cured, I would write a book and give it away for free. I felt that that was my obligation, that I would be so thankful that I would do that. So, Jeff, just to mention that the path2cure.com /bonus is an audio book, and out of my own pocket I paid to have it published, and then gave it away for free now for over 2 decades. And with the bonus, it's actually an audio book, so have at her. It was a woman I was serving years ago in New Brunswick, Canada, and she offered to do the recording of it as an audiobook. So I'm super proud of that piece. And again, it's completely free. and there's no charge for that at all, just so you know. I think to get the book all in one encapsulated version, I don't know, it's at $9.99, but the Path to Cure bonus audio book is given to you for free over several weeks. You get to unpack another chapter each week until it's finished.
Yeah. So there it is. So thepath2cure.com/bonus, or if you leave off the bonus, you can also see the Kindle version, if that's your preferred
Mhm.
way of reading and all of that. But otherwise, as I say, if we get kind of questions that come in from the replay, we will certainly incorporate that in our next Q&A. But otherwise, thank you, Allyson, and thank you all for kind of joining us and being part of this whole path with us.
It's my pleasure. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff, so much for taking the time and yeah, co-hosting with me. I know there was a knock at the door, which is the worst thing that can happen during a live broadcast. So yeah, thanks for fading and going to pick that up. And
That was
yeah,
perfect timing. You were right in the middle of your map tour. So yeah, you
for
were
a moment I realized, whoa, I'm by myself. I was a bit spooky for a second, but yeah, it was all good.
okay. Well, we will see you all in TV land next time.
Thank you, Jeff. Talk to you soon. Bye.